It's a certified fact that Chinese films can put on fights way better than Hollywood movies. I mean, we're so used to seeing crazy CGI battles that we forgot there's stuff like this that also exists. You know, I'm making such claims despite me not having watched all the hidden gems of Chinese and Hong Kong cinema, which says a lot about the variety out there. Let me show you what I liked via my top 25 most badass action scenes from Chinese movies. Yeah, but I'm not wasting any time at all because all the entries today are going to be peak. I'm kicking off with 2024's Blade of Fury, which happens to be a great example of how smooth Chinese Wuxia films can pull off the concept of floating fights. So, in this particular scene, there isn't exactly a lot of floating in the traditional sense. There's a lot of smooth gliding, which pretty much utilizes the same methods for execution. Our man Pei Jing finds himself fighting a weird toad dude, a bald guy with a spear that looks like a broom, and a femme fatale who likes using arrows amongst other weapons. It's a pretty stacked matchup, and Jing does extremely well to fight all of them at the same time and also take out the jumping toad dude in the end before he could escape. There's not a single second in this fight where you can blink. I mean, we're given so much action, and I genuinely wonder how the actors and stunt crew were able to do their thing without getting seriously hurt. There weren't more calories burnt here than the yearly output of a Zumba studio, and that's saying a lot. Let's get a little more recent with the already hyped up The Furious. Now, I just want you to know that all the films I'm covering today are either Chinese, Hong Kong, or joint productions with either or both of these territories. So don't be surprised if you occasionally hear English dialogue here and there. Back to the movie, we've got Wang Wei and Navin fighting an absolute brute of a henchman who's got a very dangerous weapon in his hands. Seeing these two take him on kind of reminds me of the fight scene from the first Raid movie where Rama and Andy fought Mad Dog. This one feels a lot more loaded in terms of props and choreography, but I do have to admit that the good guys weren't struggling as much as the Raid guys did against their opponent. Regardless, I'm all here for the violence because it's entertaining as heck. Side note, it's great to see martial artists like Mo Tse and Joe Taslim working together in films like The Furious. The talent just oozes out without any effort, doesn't it? Speaking of martial artists, here's the legend Donnie Yen battling it out against Nicholas Tse in Raging Fire. I don't know if you've watched this film, but I'd say the final fight scene should be more than enough for you to give it a try. Cheng Sung Bong goes as hard as he can when confronting Yao Kong and Go. And it was very much needed considering the weapons he was up against. It looks like they're fighting in an abandoned church, which somehow always adds to the stakes in a typical final battle. But neither of these guys was planning on being as merciful as the Lord. There are some insane moves on display here, which makes it all the more surreal once you learn that Donnie Yen is above 60 and Nicholas Tse is closing in on 50. Where on earth do these guys get their fitness lessons from? If I were to take even one of those blows, I'm making it out in one piece as easily as these two did. The scene ends with Yao resorting to extreme means to avoid getting arrested, which results in self-sabotage, but I can live with that. Now we've got ourselves a really crazy one. I mentioned Donnie Yen in the previous entry, and he's here too, playing the role of Xiao Feng, but the crazy part is that he's also the director of this movie too. Yeah, the man decided he needed to add another skill to his existing repertoire. Naturally, you'd expect an epic sequence, but this fight is literally fire. Yes, they fight with fists, kicks, weapons and flames, leaving no stone unturned in the super popular tea house fight. This happens somewhere around the middle of the movie, but it totally gives us final battle energy, doesn't it? Feng has to be quick on his toes, which is where some of that floating choreography comes into play. Of course, it's when his bald opponent unleashes flames that we're like, no way.
No way.
But of course, Feng ain't gonna let anyone have the last laugh, or in this case, the last blast without him. This scene may not be as popular in the West, but it does have quite the reputation in Asia because of how detailed and exhaustive it is. The whole thing is around 2.5 minutes, but it feels so much shorter because of how intensely it's being directed. I started off with Blade of Fury, but a single entry definitely won't do it justice. After all, I didn't even include the final battle from the movie, which makes the earlier selection feel like a warm-up. So it begins with Pei Jing beating some of the side villains and saving a little kid, but then he meets the final boss of the movie. Go Zhongxiang. Man, I really hope I'm saying these names correctly, okay? Please forgive me if I'm making any mistakes here, alright? Anyway, it's a typical case of the hero being beaten easily at first, then the power of love and responsibility charges him up to come out on top and vanquish the bad guy right after. And yes, it's also got flaming swords in it, which always ups the swag quotient of a scene. The final sequence is pretty brief. But it's got a crazy amount of action in it, especially the float fighting style I've been raving about right off the bat. I know it's mainly wires and stuff, but these Wuxia films really have made it their own thing, haven't they? Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe and become a member for early access to our videos. Doesn't matter whether you're young or old, if you can fight, you better make sure you give the fans a good freaking time. We see a cool example of this in Twilight of the Warriors, Walled In. Yeah, I know the name's a bit long, and so is this fight, but I can guarantee you won't get bored. First of all, the names of the fighters are Mr. Big and Cyclone. Both these guys have contrasting personas, which is reflected in their fighting styles, and that's what makes it such a gem to watch. There's also the fact that Mr. Big is actually the legendary Sammo Hung. It's amazing to see him do all of this even at his age, although I did read that they used doubles in some of the sequences, which I guess is fair enough, isn't it? Anyway, the camera movements helped in making the scene feel a lot faster in terms of pacing, but that takes nothing away from the grandpa showing the young ones they got it too. It's time to let the ladies take over in this entry. The Grandmaster sure made waves when it came out, and one of its main highlights was that wild fight sequence on the freaking train. I was thinking of saying they tried to copy the Wolverine when he went to Japan, but both of these films came out in 2013, with the Grandmaster actually releasing months earlier than Hugh Jackman's film. Enough with the comparisons though, let's get to the good stuff. Gonga and Ma-san were going at it, with Gonga totally moving like a ballerina. I also liked how the snow was used to convey the respective styles and personalities of both fighters. That final move she pulled looked so graceful and epic, even though it should have technically ended her opponent. Honestly, how did bro even survive that? He bounced off a moving train, which shouldn't be possible in any case, but I guess we can ignore the basic laws of physics and other sciences when it comes to badass action scenes. Remember Raging Fire from a while ago? Well, here it is again, and this time I've chosen to bless you with the Backroom Brawl. So, Shang-Chi had come out around the same time as this film, and it was supposed to put Marvel on the map for its fighting sequences. However, once you compare what you saw there and what you're seeing here, I think it's safe to assume that the big old studios have still got a long way to go. Donnie Yen goes full one-man army mode in this scene as he fights a whole gang of goons all by himself. The man doesn't have it easy either, but he still manages to come out on top. Bro always shows the audiences such spectacular stunts, pushing his physical limitations to the pinnacle of martial arts. Yes, it does suffer at certain points from the trope where the others wait while they watch their own dudes getting thrashed, but I can let that pass for goodwill. Our man Donnie had to hold back earlier because he was in a different film franchise, but when he's Ip Man, the skill and the aura both skyrocket to the moon. The cinematography of this scene definitely stands out because of the lighting and the angles, but as usual, it's the fight that remains the most memorable part. I gotta say though, Ip Man may defeat his opponents physically, but he also violates them financially by destroying most of their property. There's a lot more damage in this scene than there should be, but I guess it's okay because of how badass it is. The switching from blades to fists and kicks was a neat upgrade. But the main takeaway was our man taking the W with the 1-inch punch. Dude's expression was so focused, it felt as if it was one of the few times we were seeing him actually lock in. Iko Uwais may have made his name through the excellent Raid films, but a guy like him was always bound to go global. That's why we see him fighting Tiger Chen in 2019's Triple Threat.
You killed my wife. For this, I will kill you.
Which is a production shared by China, Thailand, the United States, and France. Yep, that's as global as it gets, and the film's even got Tony Jaa in it too. The scene for today though has Jaka and Long Fei trading blows in front of a very enthusiastic audience. I mean, they're watching two renowned martial artists go at it, so anybody would have lost their minds. So, Jaka does seem to be consumed by rage, which was probably why he wasn't being as calculative as Long Fei, and by the end of the battle, he pays the price by losing the bout. Of course, the fight choreography didn't let us down, and we also need to remember that these two guys are seasoned pros in the world of martial arts, and they know exactly what the audience wants. Hey look, here's another entry from Twilight of the Warriors, but this time we've got Raymond Lamb getting jumped like it's nobody's business. Okay, this one isn't the final fight, but it's definitely my favourite from the whole movie because of how crazy it goes. Lam has to face off against all kinds of opponents and he's got to use whatever he can to defend himself. It's an extended fight that goes well beyond 5 minutes, but doesn't let up in the excitement factor. The funniest thing about the whole sequence was that Bro was fighting for dear life while the old dudes were just chilling in the corner and aura farming in the background. Of course, the final part of the scene gives us a good payoff, but it's the overall vibe that makes us want to revisit this moment again and again. I swear, Hollywood really needs to give us action sequences like this one. Also, if you have any suggestions or recommendations, feel free to drop them in the comments below. The train sequence was cool for sure, but the intro to the Grandmaster was an absolute banger. We've got another version of Ip Man facing off against a dozen or so warriors, and it's the legend himself, Donnie Yen, showing us how it's done. The fact that all of this is happening with rain falling in the background makes the vibe immaculate. The cinematography is the winner yet again, because each second is made to feel so pristine. Ip Man's outfit is on point as well, because I suppose taking down a gang of fighters does require you to be dressed in the appropriate drip. The swag factor was turned up to 1,000 and Mr. Leng sells his persona perfectly. He's a man trying to reflect on the nature of martial arts, and there's no better way to do it than being a one-man army. Yes, we know Donnie Yen is the face of Ip Man, but boss man Tony ain't too far behind. Quentin Tarantino may have Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but if you change the location to Shanghai, you get two crazy fighters sparing no mercy as they take each other on despite not being in the best battle outfits. Like, seriously, suits aren't exactly what anybody would recommend in such a high-stakes encounter. But Long Chi was in his Gojo element like, nah, I'd win. While the fight itself doesn't have a definitive winner, it was pretty hardcore, as Long Chi and Ma Yong Zhen didn't let up for a single moment. The black and white setting gave it more of a vintage feel, which worked quite well in my opinion. Some of those moves were way too rapid, which led me to question if human beings could actually move like that in real life. Anyway, this is a highly underrated film from a global standpoint, so do check it out if you found the fight interesting. Well, look who decided to drop by and tap into his Chinese ancestry. It's the one and only John Wick. Keanu Reeves. I know he's kind of built a whole identity around the character, but before he became the world's favorite assassin, our man went on to direct and star in a movie called Man of Tai Chi. It was a joint production between China and the United States, with Reeves playing the main villain Donaka Mark. He's up against Tiger Chen, who's got the same name in the movie too, apart from the added Linhu at the end. Anyway, Mark dominates the fight at first, but just like any other boss battle,
You know what you are.
Mr. Chen awakens the tiger inside him and takes down the villain with an impressive set of moves. It's a lengthy sequence with some exposition in the middle, but for the most part, it's very enjoyable. That palm strike was a classic move, and it capped off what I can surely call a hidden gem. We We do love one-on-one fights, but things always get crazier when you're involved with groups. Rise of the Legends' best sequence sees two bald men with ponytails going harder than freaking Autobots versus Decepticons, but then things become even more chaotic when a whole squad turns up to make the sequence even messier. Eddie Peng is unrelenting as Wong Fei Hung, and it shows in how he handles this scene. The fact that the enemies rarely back down on him, attack from behind and actually gang up on him makes the experience so much better. Nobody's really waiting on the hero to finish his current fight because their target is to take his head. The part where it extends to outside with the rain falling on them was an epic addition as well. That down dodge kick was neat and must have also been super painful for the unlucky recipient. It's time to enter the top 10, so you'll probably be seeing a few classics that I've covered in my previous videos too. The fight train was a cool demonstration of how girls can get it done, but I don't want to limit this video to just one fight involving a badass woman. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon has arguably given us the greatest martial arts fight between ladies, and you can prove me wrong in the comments if you've got something better from Chinese cinema. Michelle Yeoh's Yu Shu Luen and Zi Zhang's Zhen Wu don't hold back as they use some very dangerous weapons on each other with no intention of leaving their opponent unharmed. The choreography takes a huge W, and I also have to hand it to the set design team for giving the scene such a genuine feel. I did mention the classics in the early entries, so you should have definitely expected Jackie Chan to show up at some point. I know he's got tons of movies to his names, and I can probably make a whole collection of videos specifically focusing on him, but I've got to be fair to the others, so we're only going to include the ridiculous battle from Drunken Master 2. Apart from the fact that our man Wong manages to beat John with the powers of booze, there's some great direction and smooth cuts which makes the battle appear raw and seamless at the same time. Ken Lo is no pushover, which was why his character John was so tough to beat, but Mr. Chan always goes through all kinds of efforts to ensure he keeps us happy and entertained. It's insane that he has so many intense fights that are also full of comedy. Oh boy, we just can't get enough of Mr. Yen, can we? Then again, his scenes are so good that it's hard for me to just ignore them. Sergeant Ma and Tony seem to have it out for each other, but I don't care because I got a kick-ass battle scene out of it. Donnie Yen and Colin Cho are both respected fighters, but I've got to give credit to Ma because he was fighting with others for a while before he could kick off this sequence. The fight stretch is over 7 minutes long, so it's not an easy win for Ma by any stretch, but he does get the W, which is what matters in the end. Plus, he did it without having to end Tony's life, which I'm sure would have been a lot tougher than if he actually wanted to use lethal means. Here he is again, but this time as a more nuanced character. Big Brother is an action comedy, so you could say that our man Donnie was tapping into his Jackie Chan energy for this one.
I'm just here, looking for my student, and bring him home.
The fact that Henry even chose to raid a locker room full of MMA fighters alone was enough to tell us his guts were made of steel. Like, these aren't random thugs with basic combat skills. These are dudes who literally get paid to fight as hard as they can, and they do put up a good showing. Although you can only be gangster for a certain amount of time till big boy Donnie starts tapping into that Wing Chun energy. Also, I really liked how Bro was using the lockers as his main weapons. Modern problems do require modern solutions. Remember all the stuff I was saying about floating fight scenes? Well, this one requires a heck of a lot of balance as well. The House of Flying Daggers really wanted to up the overall game of bamboo fights, and Xiao Mei was ready to make it work no matter the cost. The visuals were great, and even the dramatization of certain parts worked well enough without making the whole thing feel cringe or cheesy. There's also a shared focus, meaning it's not just one person taking all the glory. The crew really must have had a hard time pulling this one off because they were firing bamboo as if it was some kind of cultivation skill. It's quite surprising that Jet Li has only shown up now, but I did mention that I was saving the classics and the legends for later. And, as it so happens, he's up against Donnie Yen in the iconic classic from 2002's Hero. Nameless and Sky are both going for glory, and they take the meaning of floating fights to a whole other spectrum, as you could say they were pretty much fighting in the air for the most part. Mr. Nameless does win the encounter eventually, but not before giving us straight peek between two celebrated legends of the game. Oh man, this was just way too good. Donnie Yen is Chen Zhen in this film, but he's made to really work for his whim. Jikon Raishi really thought he had his man too, but then the typical hero power-up happens, and it's as if Bro's been possessed by someone else. We also got to see how shredded Chen Zhen is, which obviously makes his victory look a lot cooler than it is already. It felt a bit odd that Mr. Yen wasn't using the Yip Man fighting style that made him so popular. But I suppose we shouldn't be putting him in a box now, should we? Regardless, the villain was totally like, ah, shucks, it's part 2 of the final boss fight. Guess I'm cooked now, aren't I? Jet Li shows up again, and for good freaking reason too. General Go was nothing short of a menace, but he had to get past Chen to truly own his villain arc. The fight between these two is an extended sequence that gives us the best of both styles, as they don't hold back at all. We can see that General Go isn't a pushover because his durability was a bit too high, and Chen wasn't really doing that well at first either. But then came the critical strikes, which resulted in a weapons exchange. Billy Chow does his bit too, as the scene never lets up right until the very end. Eventually, it all got decided via a game of counters, and Chen took the W. Yeah, Donnie Yen's been on quite a few entries so far, and it's only fair that I include his most famous scene this high up on the list. If you're ever in a competition for the biggest hater alive and you see Ip Man discussing how he feels about karate, you should just pack it up and call it a day. There's no way anyone can top the humiliation he served those 10 black belts, and with 18 years having passed since this scene came out, I can safely say there hasn't been anything like it. I did mention Tony Leung's Ip Man, who actually took down more opponents, but as good as that may have been, there's no topping a true classic. Bro was unstoppable to say the least, and set a whole new standard for the world of martial arts cinema with this scene. Did you really think I was going to make a video on Chinese and Hong Kong movies without even considering Bruce freaking Lee? Here he is, right at the top, where he belongs. The only people who won't be happy with the top few entries on today's video would be Japanese folks, especially as their black belts get brutalized in the previous scene and a whole dojo gets mocked in this one. Now, I'm not a hater myself, but I can't ignore a legendary moment when I see one. It's just not in my nature to do so, is it? Additionally, it must be said that Chen Zhen wasn't out to bully these guys either. He was just giving them what they deserved after the disrespect they gave out. This was pure action, just the way it should be. Donnie Yen was pretty good in the earlier entries, but I'm sure he wouldn't mind the glaze either. And what's wild is that Fist of Fury was a huge hit in Japan, so I guess my earlier statement was a bit of an exaggeration. I can only imagine what Bruce Lee could have achieved if he'd lived a long, fulfilled life. Rest in peace. Hope you liked the video. Please subscribe to the TV Regent and become a member for early access to new videos.